So unless we can be fact-checked, this is definitely the biggest typical that's been shot in Ohio.
Yeah,
year.
I mean, obviously we've watched the socials. And
So far.
anything that has been posted on social media through 3 days, that's the biggest typical deer that's been killed in the state of Ohio. I mean, you rough scored him at 175 and change.
Yeah, I think it was like 175 and 6/8.
And just 2 inches of deductions.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know, 173 and 2/8 after deductions. And it was a rough score. I mean, I could be off, an inch or two, but.
All right, guys. Welcome to the Deer Shop Podcast, presented by Siman Brothers Outdoors and the Leaky John Boat Company. Your track job was the first fun track job.
Oh, that was the best.
That kind of like, I think part of my life was influeed by that night.
Looking back on it, my biggest regret was opening day. I knew where it needed to be. I should have just done a simple hanging bank off the corner of that field, and he would have been toast. But I didn't.
That was our first public land deer hunting trip, and it went extremely well.
5 years ago, we couldn't shoot a deer at 100 yards with a slug gun. Now you're shooting turkeys at 100 yards with a shotgun.
It was a 90-yard shot.
Pass through.
And then you miss him 3 times with a rifle at 70 yards on video for the whole world to see.
Yeah, that's what Caleb did.
This is the first buck I've shot in over 10 years. And, not to get too crazy emotional about it, but like
10 years, no buck. All right, guys, Deer Shop Podcast, episode 63. Today's topic is opening day Booner and Ohio's deer season. As always, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. It helps us out on all the streaming features. Today, September 30th, when we're recording, was the second most listened to day in the history of our podcast. So
Yeah,
that's cool.
pretty good.
Ohio's deer season is here. Hurricane Helene came through, so definitely want to give some prayers and stuff out to the people in the South, especially the Appalachian, the North Carolina region. They got literally just fucked up by that hurricane.
We got a little bit of rain, a little bit of much needed rain.
Yeah, we needed rain, and it came at the cost for them. But I've literally watched the food plots grow about 2 inches like a night in our photos. Like, it's crazy what we needed for this rain. The SBO crew did not have much to report for this opening weekend. Me and you sat for some does. I was at full draw for about 1 minute and 30 seconds. She was real edgy, and it just didn't quite work out for the film. Ethan's been skunked twice. Luke was skunked, sat in the rain. Freeman was sitting in the rain, saw a bunch of deer far off. Nick didn't hunt. I don't think Kasich hunted. I don't think Alex hunted.
Yeah, an early season isn't a huge thing for us around these parts very often. For one,
yeah,
we're usually both still
have,
working.
And we don't have beans this year. So
beans.
Corn makes it hard, but every year, someone we know in our small group of friends or our circle that we run with on whether it be Snapchat or Instagram or just, our actual real circle of friends, someone kills a good deer every year, opening weekend or early in the season. And this year
was pretty dramatic.
Yeah, this year was kind of dramatic. One of our fellow Union Fire brethren, Tyler Gullett, is our guest on here today, and he killed you can see it in the video. It's an absolute stud of a whitetail.
So unless we can be fact-checked, this is definitely the biggest typical that's been shot in Ohio.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've watched the socials. And
so far.
Anything that has been posted on social media through 3 days, that's the biggest typical deer that's been killed in the state of Ohio. I mean, you rough scored him at 175 and change.
Yeah, I think it was like 175 and 6/8.
And just 2 inches of deductions.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know, 173 and 2/8 after deductions. And it was a rough score. I mean, I could be off, an inch or two, but.
I mean, we've been around, you've been, and it's the perfect time to get into this before we even talk about the deer, how we kind of got to know you. I mean, we met through mutual friends. Petrie, I believe, was initially. Yeah. Didn't you guys go to school together or something?
We went to fire school together 5 or 6 years ago.
Like 2018 maybe, something like that.
Right when I got hired at my department, I went to fire school. Met you there. We both worked at Life Care at the time, I think, but different cities.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were in that other city.
Yeah.
Just Wild West.
And during fire school, I don't even think I knew you hunted.
Yeah, because we weren't in the same
whatever
battalion or whatever, so we didn't talk a lot about hunting.
But no, that first contest year, I think Petrie and Mark needed a teammate.
Yeah,
and I don't even know if I was in that group chat at the time.
I don't think we had.
No,
group chat.
Well, I started the group chat in 2020. It's called Smack Talk 2020.
No. Well, yeah, because I shot that.
That was 4 years ago now. Yeah.
I shot that huge 8.
Yes.
That first was it
that
2021 then?
You shot that 8, and I remember, and that's what made me think about this when you said, rough score on your end. We've seen some deer that you have rough scored before, and you're usually very close. Like, it's not, you don't some guys like to score low, some guys like to score high. You've been right on the money, because that first year we didn't know you. You were kind of a stranger. You were on Mark and Petrie's team, and you showed up to the measure off. And you had this 160-inch 8-point. Where anyone says they have a 160-inch 8-point, everyone's like, bullshit.
Yeah.
So you showed up with this thing, and we were in the back of our minds. Everyone's kind of like, I mean, it has to be an incredible 8-point to make 160. And you showed up. You walked in with this thing, and everyone's just like, oh my God.
Yeah, the beam. I just remember the beams.
It went out and like. Whew.
Yeah, I think he had like 25-inch main beams or something like that. But I remember the night I shot that, I sent that picture to the group chat, and everybody's like, oh, great deer. And like 2 hours later, I scored it, and I was like, I got like 159 or 160. Mm-hmm. And even Mark was like, there's no way that thing's 160. And then Petrie made me drive out to Life Care the next day. He's like, I need to tape this thing. I had it caped out. I didn't even have it capped yet. And he was like, we were within like a, half inch of each other. So
that was back when, for better or for worse, I mean, we're not barely involved with the contest at all anymore. It's kind of gone downhill over time.
But contest is left.
Yeah. But that was back then. I mean, the contest was a lot of fun. It was kind of a big deal. And you guys won that year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys showed up and won it all. It was funny because Mark didn't even have a team until about
a couple hours before it ended.
So Petrie had entered the contest back before it was like a team thing. For Medina County Hunters, we used to do an individual contest, and we started that 2014 or 15. We started this individual contest. Just highest gross score buck wins, and we had like 20 entries the first year. And I remember, I think it was year 2, Petrie shot that flamethrower, which is a 167.
Yeah, that was when I still worked at Life Care with him. So
that's kind of how we started knowing Petrie on the hunting side. Obviously Isaac knew him from working together, and I got hired I got hired at the Fire in 2017. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd met Petrie. I kind of knew him through you at that point, but I really got to know him then. But yeah, that's kind of how we got introduced.
Yeah.
And we kind of just keep up with each other via Snapchat. Really, I mean, that group is one of the only Snapchat groups that I actually pay attention to.
It's active enough.
Yeah, it's a lot of shit talking, man. Like a lot of shit talking.
Well, that's all we do is talk shit.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, the group chat's literally called Smack Talk 2020. So
yeah, there's been a lot of people added and deleted over the years from that group,
but there's good guys in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's everyone in there's.
And we drive back and forth. We obviously have different hunting styles, different hunting locations.
Definitely going to get into that tonight for sure, which is going to be fun. But
yeah,
I should have had. I've tried to get you on the podcast a couple times in the past. You've always kind of just, I'm too busy. I can't do it. I got to build a house. I got to do this. You had a lot of things going
Wife,
on.
3 kids.
Right.
Yeah, he does live a considerable distance from us.
Back
as well.
then, I didn't get the excuse of wife and 3 kids, but trust me, now I get the
Now you have a wife and 1 kid.
Yeah,
You're
it's
pretty busy.
Struggle to get
You guys are actually closer than I thought. It was only like 35 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's one road.
Yeah.
Not to give locations away.
I pass by here all the time, and I had no idea you guys were right down here.
Any individual that goes from your area or, over like by where I work, anywhere up that way, and has to go to Columbus or go to down 77, they got to go right by
Well, I mean,
us.
you know where we camp.
Yeah.
So every time we go to camp, we pass you guys. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we like our little slice of heaven. We'll get into the differences of hunting later, but I guess we can just start by just talking about this individual deer. So I was a little bit wrong. I was trying to keep my information together. I was under the impression, and I guess my thought process is kind of still there. I thought you were just able to find this deer this week or the last couple weeks, kind of narrow in on him. Talking pre-podcast, we found out that you knew about this deer for many years, and he showed up on camera then. And I'll let you kind of go into that story up until the hunt.
So basically, I got permission to hunt this 15-acre property pretty close to where I live. And the landowner went on some guided elk hunts, did a little bit of hunting, but was never serious about it. So he let me hunt his property. And I mean, this property was laid out badass. It was like a 15-acre property, pond in the front. There was a church property behind, and the church owns like probably around 100 acres behind, so nobody hunts back there. And I had a bunch of good deer back there, and I actually shot a real nice mainframe 8 with a couple flyers off the side. That was the one I shot 2 years ago there. And that year, I had a really nice young 8-pointer, like big frame, brow tines, both kicked out like that. He had a curl on one of the brow tines, and he wasn't a shooter at all. Like, it wasn't even on my radar. He came in once, I let him go.
So probably a 3-year-old deer,
yeah,
2-year-old deer.
He, at least 3, I'd say 3. So I let him go, and then that next year, which would be last year, the landowner started hunting, and I was like, I'm just going to back off. It's his property. I'm not going to push in on it. So I'd been trying to get another spot close to there because, the city owns land close to there that can't be hunted. And in that, like, little block right there, there's probably close to 400 acres of woods and, ag field. So I go across the street. The lady across the street owns a 50-acre parcel, and the whole front is beans, and she's got probably 20 acres of woods in the back, like 300 yards wide, something like that. So I knock on her door last year, right after I back off this property, give her my whole spiel, and I knock on a lot of doors. Like, we don't have family land. Nobody in my family hunts. So all my spots are knock on doors. So I knock on her door, give her my whole spiel, tell her who I am, what I do for work, where I live. And they were just kind of skeptical about it. They say, not this year, but come back next year and ask again. So I came back again this April. And I usually never go that early, but I stopped in April, and I was like, we talked last year. Would you guys have any interest in let me hunt? Husband was like, nah, my wife's not really. She just not into it. She doesn't want you to. So I was like, all right. And this summer, I had like probably 3 or 4 bucks. I know 2 for sure that were pushing over 160 that I was watching. And the one I had patterned like coming in 3-4 times a week in daylight. And I thought I was going to go after him for sure. So my father-in-law is at my house, and he's doing some work on the excavator in the backyard. And he's like, did my workers show you that buck that was on the job site the other day? And I was like, no. He's like, oh, it was huge. And he doesn't hunt. Yeah. So I'm like, it's a guy that doesn't hunt. He's saying this giant deer.
2-year-old 8-point or 200-inch deer. You can't really tell.
So I'm like, no, he didn't. I was like, where was it? And he tells me where it is. And I'm like, that's the field next to the property where I knocked on the door, and they told me no.
Yeah.
So I take my kids to get ice cream that night. On the way back, I'm like, we're stopping by this field. So we pull in, I glass the field, don't see it. There's a bunch of does and little bucks in the field. The next morning, I wake up at like 5 a.m. I go to the gym, or it was 6. So I go to the gym. On the way back, I stopped at the field again. When I pulled into this road, because they were putting a street in right there, and I pull into this road, and this buck jumps out of this thicket on the other side of the road. And they were just roughing in the road, so it was all gravel. Books it across this field, and I'm like, that was a big deer. But I couldn't tell exactly what it was, right. So I texted his employee, and I'm like, Kevin said, you saw a pretty big deer. You got a picture of it. Can you send it to me? And he sent it to me, and it was that velvet one that I sent you guys. And I'm like, how far was that? It's like, and this guy hunts. He's like, it was like 250 yards away. And I'm like, at the time, I'm like, dude, that's a 190. Yeah. I'm like, that's a big deer. So I, pulled up Onyx, and I'm like, how am I going to get permission here? Because I'm not going to knock on this lady's door again.
Third
you know
time.
What I mean?
Yeah.
Well, the neighbor owned 13 acres. So there's 3 parcels. They're like bowling alleys, the 50-acre one and 2 13-acre parcels. And I started going to that field like every night, and I was watching him walk out of this little 4-acre block of woods. He was way up north. He would feed through this bean field all the way south and then cut into the property that the lady told me no. And I knew that was a hard no. So I drove to the other lady's house that owned the 13 acres, and I knocked on her door, and I pull up, and there's like Democrat signs all over the place. Like, her front door has a sign that says she works on the campaign trail for Democrats.
So you're like,
and
let's put this thing in reverse.
Dude, Kamala Harris, like 3 Kamala Harris signs in her yard, and I'm already like,
it's a bad start.
It was a bad start. So I knock on her door, and she answers, this little old lady, and I'm like, my name's Tyler Gullett. I said, I live like 5 minutes down the road from you. I just need you to hear me for 5 minutes. And I basically told, and by that point, I had seen him enough that I'm like, I think that's that deer from across the street.
Right.
So I was like, there is a deer that I've seen in your field for like the last 2 weeks. I said, he's a very old deer. and I hunted him when I had permission across the street from you. I said I let him go, hoping he would get to an older age, and he happened to show up in your field, and it's because you have beans in your field. And she started looking skeptical, and I'm like, I'm sure you get people that knock on your door all the time to hunt. I said, but this deer means a lot to me, because typically when you bet on a deer, it doesn't work out and they get killed. Yeah. And I was like, it's a matter of time before this deer is hit by a car or he's killed by coyotes, because there's a ton of them back there. And I'm like, he does not deserve to die like that. And I basically said, you know, I'd like to know if you'd consider allowing me to go after this specific deer. I said, I don't want permission to hunt all the deer, this specific deer. And if it's not this deer, then it's no deer at all. And she's like, oh, I kind of like that you're just asking to hunt that deer, you know, not just going back there to slay a bunch of deer. No.
Has she seen it?
No idea. And she's like, yeah, I mean, that sounds all right. I don't have a problem with it if you say it's old, you know, and I don't want it to get hit by a car. And she goes, I'm fine with it, but I need to clear it with my cousin first. And she lives next door.
Ooh, okay.
Which is the lady that told me no.
But you're making some progress.
Yeah, so I went from like, oh my God, I got a chance to hunt this deer, to you have to ask your neighbor who told me no twice already.
Yeah.
So she takes my number down. She's like, I'll call you once I talk to her. A week goes by. I hear nothing. And I'm like, oh. And now it's like mid-September. Yeah. And I'm like, I want to get a camera out there. I want to get a stand picked out. So a week goes by. I hear nothing. So I write her a letter. And in the letter, I was just like, and my mom works for the post office. So I'm like, I texted my mom, like, I'm putting this letter in this mailbox. Do not take it out. So my mom's her carrier.
Okay.
So, yeah, I write
it's all coming together here. He got access to all the addresses and everything.
I just write her a letter. I'm like, you know, thanks for hearing me. I really appreciate it. And she had just fallen and messed her hip up. I'm like, you know, if you need any help with anything, feel free to call me. I played the whole, like, you know, this town's not what it used to be. And, you know, I know when you grew up, it wasn't like this. And I told her, I said, before we know it, all this land in this city is going to be gone. And I'm not going to ever get a chance to shoot a deer like this in the city I grew up in. And, so another week goes by, nothing. And now it's Sunday before the opener. And I get a text at the fire department, and she's like, hey, Tyler, sorry it took so long to get back to you. But the land is technically in my kid's name. And I had to talk to them and get all their okays before I could tell you yes. And she goes, my son's my lawyer. He's going to draft up a permission slip. Mm-hmm. And once I have it in hand, I'll give you a call and you can come pick it up. So before I got that call, there's another 6-acre lot on the back end of this property, and it's like all overgrown with cattails, a few good trees you can climb in. There's no tax address for it because it's owned by a land management company, so the address was a P.O. box. And I'm like, oh, I can't knock on a P.O. box.
Right.
So I go in the city's website, I pull up the city hall meeting where they transferred that land from ag or whatever it was to residential to build on. I look up the next court case, and I found the case manager for that. And then I found the representing party for that. They didn't have a website, a Facebook page, or anything. I found the representing party for that management company and got a hold of him to ask him if I could hunt that.
That's wild.
I mean, I'm like, I have to go after this deer. So, she tells me Sunday, yeah, you know, you'll be good to hunt. I just got to get the slip. Like Monday, nothing. Tuesday, nothing. Wednesday, nothing. And I'm like, oh, like I need to.
You don't want to keep hounding her, but.
Yeah, I'm like, but I need to hunt him opening weekend. Right. And I knew it was going to be an east wind, and that was just a perfect wind for that spot. So I text her, and I'm like, hey, you know, any chance you got that slip? And she's like, oh, I forgot to tell you. I got it yesterday, but, you know, you can come pick it up today. So that night, I was like, hey, can I go out and just check the property out, see where I want to set up? And there's really not many options because, like I said, it's a bowling alley, nothing in the front. You know, there's a bunch of beans on the one side, and her 4-acre block of woods is in the center. And I knew he was bedding in that 4-acre block. Yeah. So I went out, threw some sticks up, and threw a camera out. I threw a bait pile out. I was like, I need to get this deer as close to her, you know, on her property, and I want to see how big he is. So first night he comes in daylight, second night he's gone, third night he comes in daylight, and I'm like, I think this is going to happen. Yeah. So I set up on like the south end of that block because it was a northeast wind that day, right?
No, it was east Monday.
Saturday was a northeast wind.
It might be a little different.
It might be.
It wasn't. We had a northeast wind.
It was straight east here.
Regardless, we've had prevailing east winds this whole week.
So I'm like, I got to go into this little 4-acre block. I got to set up and not bump them out of here. So, I went out that day. She told me I could, and I set some sticks up. I hunted out of my saddle. I mean, this tree was no joke, a little bit bigger than a softball.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a tiny tree.
Was it moving?
Yeah, when I grabbed my bow, it was.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it was so thick, I literally cut an oval out where I could, like, stick my torso through and my bow through, and that was, like, all I had. So, I set that up, and then Saturday, I think I got it at, like, 3 o'clock, and...
You went in early.
Yeah.
We went in kind of early on Saturday, but...
Yeah, we were out there for a while.
Not 3 o'clock.
I remember we were watching this Snapchat group live, and, like, I think we were already almost back to the shop.
So when you sent the message that you had shot him, or, like, the video of, like, holy shit, when I read it, I was already sitting on that couch. You probably sent it while we were driving back, but here, it was pouring rain.
It wasn't raining at all.
Full on rain and dark as fuck already. But like you sent that video, it's it's
perfectly
like it's
still daylight.
We're like, how the hell is it still? I'm like literally looking at that door. I'm like, dude, it's so dark.
I mean,
it was pissing buckets.
We're
here.
35 minutes away from each other. It didn't.
Well, you get different lake weather too.
Yeah, it didn't rain until over an hour after the shot.
It rained the last hour and a half of our hunt.
Yeah, it rained for a while here.
Well, and everybody I knew was like, dude, I'm getting pissed on right now. It's raining like crazy. I'm like, it looks like shit, but I'm like, I haven't gotten any rain yet. So, yeah, I mean.
And then you said you didn't see him till the last. I'm gonna try to recap what I can remember. Last light, pretty much, you didn't have very good vision on the angle he was coming out at, and he did a circle chasing does. He came out bumping does.
Yeah, so basically, like, let's say this is the tree row I'm in. I'm looking east, and he is in this block of woods that I'm in. And I had a couple does come in at like 4 o'clock, and I'm like, oh, they're going to move before the storm.
Yeah.
The does came in. They were there for like 15, 20 minutes, and they left behind me and winded me. So they were out. And then at like 7 o'clock.
Did they blow?
No, but they knew.
Yeah.
I mean, she stopped, stomped her feet, and then it was a mother and 2 fawns, and the mom just booked it, and the fawns followed her. But when this tree that I was in, I had a huge oak tree next to me, and it was overhanging into the field, so I couldn't see anything to the north of me. And I mean, it was such a thick tree. Like, when these deer show up, they're 12 yards away. Like right on the field edge, or 12 yards away, and they are in like that. So I had like 2 or 3 does came in. I literally looked up my phone to look at the group chat, and I looked up and there's 3 does in front of me. And I had probably a 90-inch 8-pointer come right across the field right at me, and I'm like, it was like 7:05, and it's like getting a little dark, and I'm like, hey, is that him? And he came in, I'm like, no. And then at 7:15. I'm looking in between the branches, and I just see a body, and I'm like, it's him.
Yeah.
I mean, just his body, I was like, it has to be him.
He had neck roll. I mean, it's September. He had neck rolls.
Dude, it looked like there was a garbage can over his neck. So I grabbed my bow, and like I said, I had a corn pile there, and I was like, because I couldn't shoot him out into the field. I'm like, I need him to be on this property. So he comes in and then comes kind of head on, and there's 2 does on the bait pile. He pushes them off and then starts following them. And I got this giant tree overhanging in the field, and I have my bow in my hand. I draw my bow back, and at this point, his head and his neck are behind this tree. Like, one more step, and he's gone. And luckily, his left leg was forward when I stopped him.
Okay.
And he was like 11 or 12 yards, and I was able to get a shot off. And it looked like the Luminoc barely lit up when I shot. And I'm like,
because you only saw it for 11 yards is like minuscule amounts of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I couldn't see it buried in the ground either. Like, I don't see a Luminoc on the ground. So yeah, I shot him, and it sounded good, but he ended up running off in behind that tree. So I'm like, I don't know if he cut across the field. I don't know if he went north.
Were you like listening like crazy?
Oh yeah, but there were so many deer that took off.
Yeah.
I'm like, is that a crash? I don't know. So yeah, I needed to get some replacement blades for my my knife I used to gut the deer.
So I thought I remember you saying you thought you hit him back.
Yeah, I did.
All right. So
Because he was quartering a little bit, right?
So I thought, I mean, dude, it happened so fast, and I'm just like, this is the biggest deer of my life. And I thought he was quartering to me. Like, I thought he had wrapped around and went like that. He was actually quartering away from me.
It's crazy how, like, in that moment, like, the details become sketchy. You know?
Oh,
like,
yeah. So, yeah, I thought it was back and low. And I'm like 20 feet up, and he's 10 yards away. So I'm like, if it's low, it's bad, you know?
Yeah.
So I climb down. I look for my arrow. I can't find my arrow. And I go 20 yards in the field, and I find blood on some of the beans. And it was good blood. And I kept following it, and I got like 40 yards into the trail, and I'm like, I'm not doing this right now. So then I backed out, and I went to Cabela's. But, so I called a couple buddies, and I was like, I want you to track this thing with me because I don't know where he went. We got back, and as soon as we step in the field, it starts just pissing down.
Yeah.
And I'm literally, I found my arrow, and it looked good. I sent you guys a picture of it. There were some bubbles on
it.
it.
Actually looked really good.
Yeah.
It was
really
soaked all the way to the knock.
Yeah. So I'm
Dark
like,
red.
well, and that was the thing. I'm like, I didn't even know if I had a pass through. But when I turned around and walked back to my stand, the arrow had tumbled, so the knock was facing the other way. But yeah, we start walking to the bean
Was
field.
the knock still lit up?
Yeah.
So a lot of guys have been having problems with their knocks after they go through the deer, you know.
Yeah.
Like splintering off, shooting off, turning off.
Well, I bought 2-3 packs of nocturnals last week. One of the packs, and not a single one of them turned on when I shot them.
Yeah,
Really?
so
Not a single one.
Nocturnals are what I shoot, but I've heard a lot of people don't like them.
But they fit so well in my arrow. That's why I shoot them.
Yeah, they fit well on the arrow.
And they don't break.
They fit well on the string. I've had a lot of, like, Luminox and stuff. They don't fit well in
They
your
don't
D-loop.
pinch
They're
good.
super fat on your
Yes.
D-loop and
Yes.
stuff.
But I'm like, if it doesn't light up, at least it still shoots well, you know?
Right.
So we go out there, and I'm literally watching the water wash the blood away. Like, there's blood in front of us. It's raining. I turn around, and all the blood's gone.
Yeah.
So I just start walking in the direction I think he went, and I like look to my left, and sure as shit, he's just piled up in the beans. And if that tree wasn't there, I would have watched him fall right in the middle of the bean field. And I was like, hey, he's over here. And we walk up, and neither one of us even looked at his rack. We were like, this is the biggest body deer.
There's no way his head was on the ground, though. Like, with that rack sticking out like
Oh,
that,
dude.
like-
I mean, yeah. We were like, this is the biggest body deer I've ever seen in my life. And like I was telling you, my buddy just got back from an elk hunt, and he was like, this is like a small cow elk.
Yeah.
He's like, this is ridiculous. And, so we walked up on him, and I was skeptical about shooting him for like a week because his body was so big, it was kind of dwarfing his antlers. And I was like, Jesus Christ, I'm glad I freaking shot him.
Yeah, and I think we're going to use that photo of you, like, laying next to him, like the funny shot on the ground.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to see how big his body is, just look at the thumbnail. 'Cause
And I mean, that's after I cut all of his flank off. So half his stomach is gone in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I remember.
he just dwarfs you.
I remember the video you walking up on him, and yeah, like you said, I mean, some deer just have it, some deer don't, and that deer, he had it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I measured the middle of his neck, and I was like, I don't want to measure the biggest part of his neck, just the middle. The center of his neck was 29.5 inches. The base under his jaw, when Josh measured him today, he said it was 26.5 inches. And he pulls open the book to pick, what form we're going to go with. And he's like, this is the biggest form. He did 95 deer last year. He's like, this is the biggest form I have ever ordered.
I'm pretty sure Josh did so the deer that Matt shared in the group chat. I'm pretty sure Josh did that one. Did he? I don't know if he talked about that, but that I remember seeing that deer in person, and that still probably has the biggest body of any deer that I've ever seen in person. And it was, if it's bigger than that one, because I'm pretty sure Josh did that one as well.
And this is September, so these
yeah,
deer aren't even rutted up
that's
yet.
the crazy thing. I mean,
what would his
obviously,
neck be?
So like
November?
Isaac said, like when we got here, there's no bark. Or very little bark in his
He's still got
antlers.
velvet on the back.
He's still got velvet on the back. He hasn't been rubbing. He's still sharp and prickly. So if you run your hands along the bases, they're still sharp. All these sheds that we find in March, there's nothing left.
All dull.
Yeah.
The only thing I've ever seen like that is if we find a dead deer in late summer.
Yes. Yep.
And their velvet's still on, or their velvet's starting to come off. That's what they look like.
Yeah.
They're real prickly.
So he hasn't even really been rubbing that much.
I mean, he still got velvet on the back of his rack.
It's crazy. Like, what would he have looked like in 25 days? Neck-wise. I mean,
it had to be a 34-inch neck.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, It took like 3 of us on a game cart to drag him out of there. His body didn't fit. Like his ass was dragging the whole way. But yeah, and we got him back, and I wanted to weigh him on the scale, but we just built that barn, and I couldn't get my hoist mounted in it, so I have one of those ones that goes on the back of your truck.
Yep.
All the way up, his rack's still on the ground. So I couldn't even get the scale on there too, or he wouldn't have been in the air.
It's funny. We have that same thing. We take it to West Virginia, hang the deer on it.
It's good.
Those deer come like 4 feet.
You could like walk underneath those deer. You know? Like everyone. I mean, those are all the deer we've killed in West Virginia the last 10 years. Literally in that box right there. And your deer antler is bigger than that whole entire box.
So, and I wish I could have got a weight on him, but it was hot yesterday, or Saturday and Sunday, and I'm like, I got to get him cut up. I don't want to deal with this. So. But yeah, I mean, just all around, just a freaking bruiser.
It's not very. So normally it's the opposite, like you said. Normally, you walk up to a deer and you're like, "Ah, oh, god damn it!" Like he's a 150, but like
you thought he was
170,
right? Because it's got such a small body.
Yeah.
That happens more often than this. Where you're looking at a 175-inch deer, but you're like, Jesus Christ, the body. Like it doesn't happen very often, and especially in September, which is, I mean, that's impressive. His mass, so like you said, you had him 3 seasons ago.
Yeah.
And you thought he was a 3-year-old then, so that would put him in the 5 to 6 category.
I would probably guess he's 6. I mean, at first I'm like, dude, this is an old deer when I was glassing him. But with how big his body was, I'm like, there's no way this is an 8 or 9-year-old deer. You know what I mean? And his teeth.
So he's a prime age deer.
Yeah.
5 or 6.
I know
years
you
old.
can't ever judge age by the antlers, but when you look at like the skull cap and the antler composition, like you can tell that he wasn't extremely old just by the marbling.
He's prime age.
That's a very old deer, and you can tell just by the way the antlers are. It's different than that one. I mean, not that he would have gotten any bigger per se.
He probably wouldn't have. I would imagine.
I don't know.
It's hard to tell.
I don't want to think about it. He wasn't going to get the pass this year.
No, I mean that's ridiculous to
even his forehead. He had, when deer get they look like a German Shepherd on their forehead, just a thick pad on their forehead. Even Josh was like, dude, this is a winter coat. I mean, his forehead.
Yeah, they have that real thick skin on them.
Oh, dude, it's a giant. It was a giant pad on his forehead. And
that deer, which is 100 inches smaller on the wall over there, Isaac.
Yeah,
that was a 6.5-year-old deer, and it had the same thing.
Yeah,
but like
he was the first deer I seen with jowls. His cheeks were hanging down because he was so old, and that was in the wintertime. He was so skinny by then.
January 20 some, but like. You can tell those old deer, and
everything about him was just.
He was at peak male performance, is what he was at.
Oh, he was on TRT or something.
So speaking of that, do you know of anybody else that was hunting this deer? I know we talked about it a little bit.
Like someone had to have been hunting this deer.
So.
Because it's a small town. I mean, you got to know a lot of the hunters around there.
So there's those 3 properties I told you about, and then there's property owned by the city, and then the next block over is a 25-acre block that I also got permission to hunt last year. But when I went in there, I found a tree stand and a bait pile and a camera, and I knew he did not have permission to be there, but he lives right in front of the property, and I'm like, I'm not going to deal with this.
Yeah, it's a headache.
And there's no good place to park, so I'm like, I'll just let this guy hunt the property, and I scratched it off, and it's right by a golf course and just prime spot.
So you're kind of in the sweet spot of this city town, between it being developed and still rural. You're in that sweet.
Yeah.
So you probably got a couple more years of this, and then depending on the landowner.
For anyone listening, it's not Columbus. This city, this town that we're talking about is nowhere near as big as Columbus.
Oh, it's a town that's growing, and eventually the hunting's going to get pushed out, I'd imagine.
Well, this area, my father-in-law, his construction company is putting that road in, and they're doing a bunch of shit. So, and I told her, I said, this is the last year that this can happen here. And I think that was a big reason she said yes too, is because she's like, the neighbors used to have deer hanging in their barn every deer season, and people would come from the town over and call the cops on them because they didn't know what was going on. And she misses the way the city used to be. But he would be the only other, literally, that is the only other property in that 350-acre block that anybody's legally allowed to hunt. So it was it just all fell into place where I'm like, this deer, he's got my name on him. You know what I mean? I think I can make this happen. I know a lot of people saw him, but as far as anybody else, dude,
nobody has really had a chance at it.
No, and I haven't seen a picture or anything. So
I mean, like if you would put your deer on like that Trophy Bucks of Ohio, you might start getting people like, oh, I recognize that thing. But
I sent it to him today, and they never posted.
Were you there the year that they came to the measure off? That guy? When we had it in Justin's barn?
No.
So you never came to Justin's barn? What was his name?
I wasn't there either. Was he a B&C scorer or was he?
No, he runs the Trophy Bucks of Ohio, like Facebook, Instagram. I can't even think of it. I knew his name. I actually asked Justin about it last week. I mean, that guy, his page gets a lot of anyone who hunts deer in Ohio follows that page, the Trophy Bucks of
they
Ohio.
post giants.
Yeah, he was in the contest the year. I think it was the year before you won. He was in the contest, and their team got second place. They lost the team competition by like 7 inches.
Yeah,
and it was like close. And we met him, and he was cool, and he ended up partying with us till like 2:00 in the morning. We did the measure off at Justin's house then. Regardless, that guy runs that page, and like, you get a buck on that page. I mean, literally 20,000 people see it.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Like, if you would have it on that page, someone's going to recognize it if they say the county that it was shot in, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I guess this is the perfect time to start talking about the fact that, and I don't think this is the buck that was being talked about, and maybe it is, but like we talked about pre-podcast, there's been some rumors swirling in this town of a couple absolute mega giants. So it remains to be said whether or not this is the one that it was. And honestly, like you said, when you saw him in velvet, you thought 190. It could be. This could be the deer that everyone in that area was hunting. I've talked to some people that were trying to get permission in and around, say, that area.
Yeah.
Not exactly. I still don't even know exactly where it was, but like somewhere in that area. And they said that, and they do the same spiel you do, like literally the same. And they said that like some of the landowners they've talked to had been asked by like 15 people prior to them getting there, which they said was an absorbent amount compared to normal years. Like they're used to getting asked, but they said this year
is different.
There are people asking like crazy. So I don't know if it was because of this deer, because of another deer.
Yeah, and it's evident if there's one of these giant deer feeding out in a bean field every evening, close to, say, a highway or a main road, people see it, they're going to stop and ask permission. That's pretty normal.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my father-in-law was the first one that told me about it, and I'm like, I don't know how I don't have more guys sending me this deer. But, I mean, between here and where I live, I mean, there's 20 deer that are 170 plus.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just him being such a perfect mainframe 10. Yeah. I mean, like a mainframe or a typical 8 or 10 to hit 170. It's like,
yeah, you're right.
It
has to be exceptional.
We talked about.
I mean, that's if it does truly net 173, and we'll give it whatever for its dry. I mean, it will net Boone and Crockett.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it definitely looks like it will net Boone and Crockett. Yeah. I've never held one before that actually netted Boone and Crockett. There's some question whether Dylan's nets Boone and Crockett or not. Non-typical. When I scored it, it didn't, but when he got it scored, it did.
What about Addies?
No.
Was hers non-typical?
It was somewhat non-typical. It had some junk and uneven points and stuff because it scored like 170.
I mean, that's probably the biggest typical rack that I've held. The only one that I can think of that might be bigger would be that one that Joey's grandpa shot. Didn't Joey's grandpa?
It was 165, something like that.
I can't remember exactly, but I know it only had 0 deductions. Or 1 inch of deductions.
Yeah.
Like it had similar to yours, like no deductions whatsoever.
But it's so rare to see these deer, even like the C.J. Alexander buck, like they always have one flyer, one uneven
or
point, one shared
base or some stupid. I mean, there's no question about this one. I mean,
it's as even.
There's nothing in question about the score on it.
I mean, I had him laying on my tailgate earlier, and I walked past him, and I'm like, it looks like a shed. Like you can't see the other side.
Right.
It was just so symmetrical. You know what I mean? So,
well, it even says, look at it laying on the table. All the points are completely even.
Yeah.
The main beams come to the same height. Broadheads are both almost touching on the ground.
I mean, obviously, like you said, there's no chance this deer gets past you, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, if it doesn't have 173, what could it have been next year? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it could have been a world record.
If he grossed 175 this year, he could have been 190 or 200 next year. You know what I mean?
State record, I think, is 204? Typical net. 204.
Yeah, but
German buck.
we just talked about this a couple podcasts ago. How many typical 200
18
inches total ever?
In the history of
deer hunting, of the world.
In the history of deer hunting, there's only been 18 typical 200-inch deer ever measured net.
If he's 5, he'd have been a world record.
Maybe.
Or an Ohio record.
Yeah, I mean,
he'd have been the Ohio record. Not a world
possible.
record.
Like, I'm looking at his mass, and it's funny to see her talk about a deer. Like, oh, look at his mass. I mean, I would assume that he would add a little bit of mass if he got a year older, because he doesn't have crazy mass. I'm assuming 4-inch measurements all the way out.
He was like 5, over 5, and then carried in the 4s for the rest of them. Yeah.
Well, and it's so
you
rare.
look at the world records; they always have like 5 and 6.
Yeah.
So
it's so rare to get a perfect typical. Like, deer farmers can't even do it.
No,
they haven't figured out a way.
They
to
have
make
never.
perfect
I don't think
typicals.
they've actually ever grown a typical world record on a deer farm. It doesn't happen because they throw junk. You start introducing all that crap, diet and all the stuff. They start throwing so much junk that it's hard for them to keep that. I mean, the typical world record is the upper echelon, the holy grail. It's everything.
Yeah, I didn't mean world record, but I mean he could.
The world record's only 7 inches bigger than the state record. So
yeah.
I
guess I don't know what the state record. I mean
I think it's 204.
If he's 5, he could have been a 200 in a year or two.
Yeah, because there's no telling. A lot of these, what was it, the world record deer that was shot in Georgia? He grew like 100 inches in a year or something like
the
that.
Tennessee buck, you mean?
Yeah.
So there was that buck.
You never know what they're going to grow.
Yeah, there's like I think he's like the number 2 all time. It's a non-typical. He was killed in Tennessee. I want, don't quote me if someone's watching this. I want to say they aged him at only 3 or 4, and he scored like 337.
Was it that with all the
yes,
crazy flyers?
It looked like a farm.
It was a guy's like first.
Yeah, he's wearing like an orange vest and muzzle loader. And he's holding up this.
He's like a
300-inch cactus buck. They
said
like
that
a
130-inch rack, but then he's got 20 points that are each 8 inches long coming off.
Oh, you're talking about the Brewster buck.
That might be.
That was the Indiana.
Was that one drop
yeah,
tine?
One side was like 200.
Like
the one side was 230 or 260. The other side was like 80.
Yeah.
And it ended up being 327.
And deer like that grow 100 inches in a year.
That deer I think they said was 5, because when he was 4, he was like a 170 with a little bit of junk at 4, and he got injured. He broke his antler off, and the next year he just threw 5 drop tines that were 10 inches long.
We have a deer over there in the shop that grew 50, 60 inches in 1 year.
Yeah, because he got hurt. Way different than this, because he when he was hurt, he had a real bad he probably only
like a 60-inch rack.
60-inch rack, and then the year that he got killed was 137 and change. So you went, so you never know what they can do year to year.
Regardless of what he could have done, he's my record.
Nobody is passing that.
I'm beyond happy with him.
I don't know anybody that shot a 170.
I watched
typical.
Mark Drury shoot like a 160 typical today on Drury. No one's passing a 175 typical.
And
no one.
I mean, the night we taped him, we might have been a little buzzed. So today,
you do your best scoring when you're buzzed.
So today, I redid a couple measurements, and his G2s, we measured him a little short that night, but like his main beam, I think we measured it like 2/8 too long. So it was like he should pan out to be a 170, I would say. Are
you gonna get him officially scored for Boone and Crockett just to put him in there?
Yeah, I mean more just to know what he truly scores. But that's part of the reason I didn't do the contest this year. Like the last 3 years I've done it, it just
that's $1,000 deer probably.
Yeah,
$1,500 deer.
But it's like every year you do it, it's like your teammates. No, don't shoot that deer. Hold off on that deer.
Yeah, I don't want to hear that shit.
And I'm like, dude, if this deer makes me happy, and I've been after him all summer, I'm not gonna not shoot him because you want your whatever it was, $80 or $100 back. You know what I mean?
That's why this is definitely the wrong crowd for that, because we're shooting 140, 130-inch deer if they make us happy all day. So we don't. The contest for us was more about the camaraderie, and that's why. There's going to be people listening that are in the contest, and I signed Isaac up without his knowledge.
I was going to say, I haven't done the contest for 3 years, and Caleb gets drunk.
I signed him up without his knowledge on Friday, but you can't be hunting for any type of content. No. And I know, nationwide, there's a lot of people who might be listening. Quest does theirs, and then there's a couple other, it is fun competition-wise, but when it starts to change the way you hunt or make you question what you want to do
why are you
because of someone else, I don't like that.
And I could just see it. It was like I got 15 properties right now. I'm running 25 trail cams. And, like, the last 5 years of my hunting career have been really good. And every year.
Yeah, you're pacing our group right now. Like, you're the guy that's pacing
carrying
the group. It was Matt Pavlik for about 12 years.
Yeah.
And you just kind of took him over. So, Matt, I know you're listening, Matt, because I know you're listening. You got some work to do because has Matt killed a deer the last 2 years?
I think it's been a couple years.
I think it's been
not
2
to
years.
put him on blast, but I think it's.
I'll
been
put him
a
on
couple years.
blast. Matt, you haven't killed deer in 2 years. What's going on, man?
Yeah.
But seriously.
But I mean, like, just knocking on 15, 20 doors a year for just deer hunting permission. And then, you know, knocking on another 20 for shed hunting permission to loop into deer hunting permission. And then knocking on, 15, 20 for coyote permission that I try to loop into deer permission. And it's like all this just to find something to score well in the contest. It was like, even my wife was like, it doesn't seem like you're having fun. And, like, this was fun.
Yeah.
Like, locking down the permission on this deer, working to get that, not worrying about, like, well, if he doesn't score 170, my team's going to be pissed because, they're going to think we're going to have this lead. And then, after those guys won last year, I'm like, they're going to do it again this year, and there's not really a point.
I haven't heard much about what they're up to this year.
I haven't heard those names.
Which probably means they're on some stuff. But,
yeah, which good for them.
I mean, I think we did talk about the one guy a couple podcasts ago.
But to go off what he was saying, you can
I'm going to grab another one.
Yeah, fridge is open.
The reason obviously we wanted to have you on to talk about this awesome deer, but also your different strategies than you have compared to us, because we don't do much door knocking.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who listens or watches or has watched our videos, I mean, they know that we hunt about as opposite of Tyler as you possibly can. We have our ground that's always been in our family, and we end up hunting the same properties and hunt what shows up.
Yeah,
we do more of we're already here and we're going to hunt what shows up.
We're either hunting our property or the ones around it.
Yeah, Tyler's a lot like Born Again Matt. He's going out and finding the deer, finding the like, I haven't knocked on 20 doors for permission in my life probably.
No, never.
Yeah.
Every year we do go and ask some permission, and I actually was able to lock in a piece this year. I added.
It's a historical farm for us.
Yeah, how big of a farm was that we added? 80?
I think it's it's got to be over 100.
80 to 100. We finally were able to add it to our piece, our big chunk. And it took, we hunted it as little kids, but it took 10 years for me to finally get the landowner to sign the permission slip. So that was a huge weight off our shoulders. And that's asking one guy for one farm. You said you asked 20 this year?
This year, I didn't ask as many as I typically do. I probably knocked on right around 15 doors this summer. But it's like, I didn't grow up in a hunting family. Right. My mom and dad got divorced when I was young. My mom got remarried, and the guy she remarried was a huge hunter when he was in his 20s. I mean, killed a couple really nice bear, went on some elk hunts.
Sounds like Isaac's kind of guy.
Crazy waterfowl hunter. Like, we'd be driving down the road. We'd see a flock of ducks. He'd pull the truck over, get out and mouth call them. They'd all turn around. And I hadn't been around this. So I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? And,
I still find duck hunters strange, so that shit's kind of strange.
Yeah, so I don't know. I had been 13. He took me deer hunting one time, and it was shotgun hunting for youth. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm hooked on this. Yeah. And after that one time I hunted with him, I never hunted with him again. And it was like, obviously I couldn't knock on doors yet because I wasn't old enough, but we had a little property behind us, and the landowner was like, yeah, I don't give a shit. You can go back there and sit in a tree like an idiot. And I hunted on my own, and we had no family property, nothing. So from 16 on, I'm like, if I want to hunt, I have to knock on doors. And back then, you could knock on 10 doors in my city and, get 5 yeses. They I don't give a shit, and
do you still have any of those properties?
No.
You know what I mean? There's none that you've had for 10 years plus.
I have a couple that I've had for a while, but none from the beginning. But when I was younger, there was this giant quarry that we had permission to hunt on. It's 2,500 acres. And my buddy's grandpa was the foreman there, and he owned land in there. And when the new owner bought it, part of the stipulation was, I'll sell you this land, but I want my family to have lifetime permission to be in here. So at 16, it was me and him, and it was 2,500 acres. And we had keys to the gates. Nobody else was allowed in there. And then somebody got killed on a four-wheeler trespassing in there, and we lost that. But from that point on, I started knocking. And in 2013, I probably had maybe like 3 or 4 properties, and I joined the Marine Corps. And when I got, and I probably had like 5 or 6 at that time. I joined the Marine Corps. When I got back, all of them were developed.
Yeah.
And I was like,
but out your way, it's incredible how fast we build houses.
So, I mean, in that 4-year span, I got back and all of them were developed, or the landowners had moved. So in 2017, I was like, I have to hit the ground running. Like my first week back from the Marine Corps, I typed up this letter, who I am, my family, I got a daughter, this is what I do for work. I printed out like 60 of these letters, and I just drove for like 5-6 hours that day with, at that time I had hunt stand.
Yeah.
I'm like, bigger than 10 acres, mailbox, bigger than 10 acres, mailbox. And out of those 60 letters, I got 1 call back.
Damn.
And I still have that property.
That's cool.
Hey, so it was worth it.
And the lady...
See, if you would have started filming your hunts back then, you'd be just as big as Lee Ellis.
Yeah. Dude, the lady, I put it in her mailbox. She calls me back, and she's like, we just moved into this house 3 weeks ago. You're the first person to ever ask us this. And my husband is active duty in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And it was like that
You're checking boxes.
Yeah, like that was a link there. And so, yeah, I had that. And then every year it's just been like, as soon as shed season starts, just knocking on doors, and you kind of get in a rhythm. But it's like with the cost of land these days, like, I'm not going to own anything anytime soon. So, yeah, I just pretty much try to spread it as far as I can. And now at this stage, like I'm kind of searching for a specific caliber deer, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So, but yeah, it's just,
land out by us right now, there's a piece of property for sale within walking distance of here, and they want $36,500 an acre.
Yeah.
For bare
$36,000.
It's bare farmland.
$500 for farmland.
Bare farmland on a country road with no utilities.
No water, no gas. You had to put a sewer in and drill a well. $36,500.
Well, because in their mind they go, everything north is developed. It's happening here next.
Yeah, and like you said, we're only 30 minutes away. So.
And it's true.
Yeah.
Like it's just knocking. City after city is just dwindling down, and dude, that scares me because like my daughter's 7. She shot her first deer last year. She shot a stud. He ended up scoring like 137.
Yeah, I have that written down here. Like I kind of want to talk about your last couple of years, and your daughter's deer was.
And I mean, she's a savage, and I'm like, what's going to happen in 10 years? Like, where are they going to have to hunt?
She's going to have to drive an hour to hunt anywhere.
Yeah. And
that's why leases have become a thing. Outfitters have become a thing because there is no option for a lot of people.
Well, that 70-acre property that I said I got, the lady was like, yeah, we just moved in, and the owner left a big tractor in there with like a bunch of implements and stuff. If you want to use any of it, you can. Dude, she's like, I'll make a key to the barn for you. I go there, hop on her tractor, till up a food plot. I had food plots on this property. I
should have just offered to buy it all from her.
Dude, last year, she offered it to me.
What you want?
Like $6,000 an acre.
Oh, my God. Why didn't you do it?
For the neighbor, my buddy bought like half of it, and he still lets me hunt. He's a great guy. And Brian Casper. And
so, yeah, I've met Brian.
Yeah, and
that motherfucker killed one of the biggest deer in the history of Ohio.
On that property.
Yeah. That deer, I've seen that deer a couple times in person.
Yeah,
it scored 2 something.
Like 203.
Yeah.
He's got a full body mount of it.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Like I'm thinking it was somewhere in like the 6 to 8 range because we had kind of talked about it, but at the time we were building our house, and my wife was like, "Get fucked if you think we're going to spend this money on." And it would have been strictly hunting, like
right.
So
it's not an investment.
It's hard to.
But dude, I could just get in her tractor, go out. It was a tractor with a bucket on the front. I had water holes, food plots. I'm like, can I cut down like all those trees right there?
Welcome to our life, man.
And she's like, I don't care. And then last year, her friend borrowed the tractor, was unloading it off the truck, and got slammed by a car. And the chassis of the tractor literally broke in half.
That's toast.
Jesus.
And she's like, I'm not buying another one. And I'm like, are you sure you don't want to buy another one? And the insurance company didn't give her any of it because they unloaded it on the road, and it wasn't a road legal vehicle.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but most of my properties are like between like 7 and 15 acres. And I'll have like, 80 acres of land within 2 miles, and they're all, 10, 12, 20 acre properties.
How often do you get the same deer?
Honestly, not that often.
So I've thought about this.
We've talked about this a lot.
We talk about this. like deer ranges to us is a big topic on the podcast, and something that I'm personally very interested in it. It makes you wonder, your deer we talked about, maybe no one, there wasn't a lot of available hunting land around where he was living right there, but I mean, I can promise you that 300 acres was not his.
Oh, no.
You know what I'm saying? So there's a guy, and depending on how a lot of deer have the split ranges or triangle shaped or, rectangle shaped ranges, there's probably some guy that's still hunting that deer 2 miles away that had him on camera the last couple of years, especially during the rut or late October. He's just waiting for him to show up. You know what I'm saying?
If he crossed the road on the other side, 10 hunters.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. We have a lot of farms that are in close proximity here to each other. We're, here at our home farm here at the deer shop, and it's amazing how sometimes there's deer that are on both all the time. Sometimes there's deer that are never on the others. Sometimes there's a deer that comes from a couple miles away.
Yeah.
That deer I missed last year.
He lived 3 miles away.
It's unbelievable how he was living 2.5, 3 miles away, and then I get a shot at him and have daylight trail camera pictures of him on multiple days. But, he's living 3 miles. I mean, how do you plan that? How can anybody hunt that?
And, some of these spots I hunt are just so congested with hunters, and I have a real problem. I like putting people on deer. I have him, and I have no problem putting one of my friends on that 165. I mean, that one that I sent the video of in Velvet where he looks up. I mean, he's a mid-160s. No, when we were pulling him out, I looked at my buddy. I'm like, you want to go after that buck tomorrow? And then the next year, I'm like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that. He's not there. But, for range-wise, this was the year I shot the big one, that big 8 that scored 160.
Yep.
I had my buddy and his wife come in from Wisconsin. I was in the Marine Corps with him. And then my other buddy also came in from Maryland. And all three of them came in together. I put them on my properties. My buddy shoots where I'm in my saddle behind him in the tree. And his wife is hunting 2 miles down the road on one of my other properties. So I have a property here. A mile and a half down the road, I have another property, and a mile and a half down the road, I have another property. So we're way up north, or way down south, and she's up north. This freaking stud 8 comes in, and he ended up scoring he's 146 or something like that. That's
what Luke scored last year.
I'm behind him. My buddy smokes this deer. I pull up my Tacticam, and I see my buddy's wife standing in front of the camera crying at the other stand, her hands in her face, and I'm like, she must have just shot something. Within 2 minutes of each other, they both shoot deer. We go, we find his deer, it's a stud. She's like, I think I shot this deer in the shoulder, it was a bad shot. Track it, bring a dog. We couldn't bring a dog out, it was pissing rain. And 3 months later, I'm shed hunting. I find that dead deer on my property in between us. Yeah. So he went 2 miles down the road on my one property, no properties in between, died 50 yards from my tree stand on my other property. I'm like, one, what are the odds of that? Mm-hmm. And two, that buck is just taking those blocks of woods all the way down to the very end. Mm-hmm. I mean, just coasting. But I'm just I'm in here shed hunting. I'm like, man, what are all those? There's a bunch of does laying by the dead deer. And I'm like,
he's in the stupid dead corpses in our bedding area.
Yeah, but I'm like, dude, what are the odds he runs and dies on the other property I had permission on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally fascinated with deer ranges. I've read every study that there is.
I wish we could do some studies. There's got to be ways we can do.
There's a lot of proven stuff where 50% of the pins, 50% of the pins, and there's literally one trail where this deer crosses back and forth between them. And that there's hunters that are like, fuck, this deer's here all the time.
You could be in
the
middle.
But he's not there all the time.
You could be in the middle and getting that deer 3-4 times a week, and you're like, oh, he's living here.
And he's not.
It's
been proven that he's never even being pinged.
He's just moving through.
It's I love it, but it makes it so
And hard. We talk about, I can run a mile in 8 minutes.
Yeah.
How fast can a deer run a mile?
Right.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I want to bring this up before we get too past it. I'm very jealous of the fact that you have that ability to, for instance, set your buddy up on deer and stuff. Because the way your style of hunting, the way that you get these properties and the deer and this and that, we've talked about this on the podcast many times. Where we're sitting right now, within 1 square mile of here, there's probably 3 deer. There's probably 3 mature shooters that are 4.5 or older.
Yeah.
There's 50 guys hunting them. including me and my 3 brothers, some of our friends, our neighbors, this and that guy. If we would, hey, come out here for the weekend, hunt the property. I got this deer lined up for you, and they kill one of those mature deer. That means 2 other people are not even going to get a chance at hunting.
There's not enough.
There's just not enough mature bucks around here because we're so crammed in and no one moves around. This farmer has been here forever, and these guys hunt here, and we hunt here, and they hunt here, and we all know that we all hunt each other, and that's why we don't talk much during the season because if he's got the deer every day, he doesn't want me to know that because I'm going to move in on the finite amount of shooter bucks just compared to the hunters.
Yeah,
there's a good amount of deer around here and a good amount of shooter bucks.
But 5-year-old bucks.
The hunter population is just every property's got a guy hunting. So it makes it tough, and I'm very jealous because when we go public land or we go to deer camp down West Virginia, all these other places, it's different. It's just go out to your spots, whatever deer comes in, you shoot. Everyone's happy. You're not married to a deer. You don't fall in love with the deer. The deer don't mean they're just deer, and it's fun.
Yeah.
But then here, we watch these deer for years and years and years, and it makes it changes the way that we interact with people, which is probably not good.
It's kind of sad.
It's probably
it
not
kind of
good,
sucks,
honestly.
But it's what we have to do if we want to try to kill that mature deer.
Well, and it makes it harder to bet on a deer that the deer is going to survive. And
that's what we talked about in the group chat. If I'm gonna pass obviously we're passing 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds are gonna pass. But if I'm gonna pass a 4-year-old, let's say there's just a 4-year-old 130. That's a deer that's good, but he's not that. He's not something crazy.
Like the deer I shot last year.
Yeah, if we would pass that deer, hoping that he'd become a 5-year-old 150, there's 27 guys that would shoot that deer.
Yeah.
So you're going to see him, and you're going to have to make that decision in the moment. Like, all right, he's in range, whether I have my bow or my gun, the situation's happening. Do I want to take that deer? Or you basically have to tell yourself, I'll never see him again. You just have to have that mentality because we have passed so many beautiful 3- and 4-year-olds, 130-inch deer over the years that just get killed a day later, one property over. And then when that happens, I'm not, they're all making fun of me in that group about, you shoot that deer, you're the neighbor then.
Yeah.
But how many years do you want to go, or how often? Do you want to kill deer and have fun, or do you want to just watch deer?
6 years?
Do you want to watch deer for 10 years? Like Uncle Jay in the podcast intro, you hear Uncle Jay say, "It's my first deer in 10 years."
That's not
that
fun.
ain't me.
No,
I'd rather kill a 130-inch buck every year than go 10 years without killing.
He
deer
100% refuses to hunt like us
because he hates how it is. But I mean, it just brings up it's such a different world, and I love talking about it because it's just a different mindset, a different world. I am jealous of you in that regard because it's fun for you.
And I mean, like, I have a 100-acre property that's like 10 minutes from you guys, and then kitty corner to that is that 70-acre property. So it's like I see the struggles I have hunting those properties because I'm the only person that's allowed to hunt that 100. Or now there's another. They let the guy across the street hunt it too, and we're both on the same mindset. Like, well, I am. I say let's let 130s walk, and the next day he sends me a picture of a 120 that he killed. But it's hard to hunt those because it's like the culture around there is everybody hunts.
I mean, sit here Monday at gun season or Saturday at gun season.
You sound like you're in Fallujah.
Oh, dude.
We can't isolate deer here.
Yeah.
I feel like you can probably do that a little bit better where you're at.
And where I'm at, it's like, I mean, and I do hunt close to some metro parks at a couple of my spots, and I'm like, there's only so many places they can go.
Right.
But where I'm at, you pass a 10-acre block of woods, and there's a tree stand in that block of woods. The spot that I killed, the 160, I mean, you walk back there, and there is legitimately like 8 to 10 tree stands in that. The block of woods totals like 50 acres, and I have permission on 13 of them, and then I have permission on the 20 on the other side. But it's like there's 10 tree stands in there, and then there's like 4 different guys that have permission to hunt this. And over the last couple of years, I just do work for the landowner, and then this year those other guys asked to come hunt. Landowner's like, hey, go talk to Tyler. He's in charge of all the woods now. But when those guys hunt, they will hunt the whole season, and they're like, I saw like 2 bucks this year. And I'm like, well, because you walked in and you hunted out of the kid's treehouse that's in the woods. Like, they built a giant treehouse in the woods. And I'm like, you didn't walk 300 yards in and see that there's like 4 conjoining trails and there's a rub line that's been here for the last 6 years. So a lot of guys think like, oh, you hunt these like more, and I'm obviously way more suburban than it is out here, but it's like 100 yards makes a world of difference. You have to read the woods. I've thrown a camera up where they're at before. I'm like, I just want to see what they have. Nothing. I go back where I'm at, where they're funneling from the creek bank that's over there, and they're going down to the soybean field they have. And I'm like, dude, I had 3 shooters on camera in a week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you do have to still be able to read the woods and see what's going on, and it's hard to, I mean, last year I'm in my stand and this guy climbs up in his stand like 100 yards away from me on the other property. And I'm like, you have to deal with shit like that all the time out there. But there are bigger deer out there.
When we asked,
or more of them.
When we did that Country Deer, City Deer, Public Deer podcast, everyone that we interviewed or had on that was talking about this stuff, they all readily admitted, they're like, if inches were all that mattered for me, if just killing big giant bucks were all that mattered for me, I would take 100 acres right outside the city every time.
Yeah.
Because it gives the deer, I guess it's kind of a twofold thing. It gives the deer the ability to get older, and the guys that are hunting that are aware of that. So I think a lot of guys that are doing like you did, asking on these, printing out 60 flyers, asking on 20 pieces, all this stuff, they're in it to kill a good deer. Yeah. So they're not doing what happens out here. Opening day gun season, just slop, just gunshots everywhere. I'm having 6 points run past me with 3 legs. It's just crazy out here because this is the country. We're going to go out to Meemaws and we're going to just have fun for the gun week. And I don't blame them. We do the same thing too. But it's more of an open season. It's more of I'm going to hunt for 1 week. I'm going to shoot the first buck that walks by, that kind of mentality. Whereas where you're at, everyone's putting in 100% effort to find that deer.
Yeah, so that work that you put in, you're not going to go shoot a 120-inch A-point.
Yeah.
The work's not worth it for that.
Yeah. And it's like, you also, like, as I progress, I'm like, I care about finding a big deer. Right. Like, I think that's a challenge and I care about that. But who am I to be mad that somebody else isn't as serious about it as me and is willing to pass up 130s and 140s? Like, I will let, something, cusping 150 walk because I want to shoot something bigger. But who am I to get mad at them because they're not, like, that could be the biggest deer they will ever see.
Yep.
And you kind of feel like a piece of shit when you're like, you should have let that deer go. It would have, could have been a 170 next year. And it's like, well, this is the best deer I've ever killed. Like, who are you to tell me that I shouldn't shoot this? So
I fully agree with you, and we've gotten better at that here. We've definitely gotten better because where you're at and the way you're hunting, there's always, well, I'll just go, I got this other property, this. So like we're stuck in a finite area. So we've watched this deer for 3 years get to be 130-inch 3-year-old. Like,
it hurts more.
One more year. Just
it hurts way more.
I got 2 of his sheds. I got, like one more year and he's going to be perfect. And then a guy comes in and kills him. I'm not mad that the guy killed his best deer, 130-inch 3-year-old. We've gone over this a lot in this podcast, but at the same time, we let that deer pass for 3 years, and then he took. You know what I mean?
It also hurts you worse because that deer means more to you,
and he's gone.
He's gone
forever.
Because we don't just move on to somewhere else where that didn't happen.
So that deer's gone, and we're still here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now we're waiting for another. We got next year, there'll be a good crop of 3-year-olds again. Then we got to wait till we get, So it's a different mentality, but we've definitely gotten better with it because there always is another deer.
Yeah.
Every year, the sky is falling, everything's dead, the world's over.
And then
there is actually 3 or 4 shooters again. So it comes around.
And I know there's people who don't agree with, the kind of style that I have to hunt. And it's like, I think a lot of it too is like how you were raised hunting. Like you guys were raised hunting out here. I was kind of introduced to like really good deer in the beginning. And, dude, it's work. Like, but I would probably trade all these properties for 1 200-acre property that I could do TSI on. I could, plant fruit
grass
plots.
Is always green, right? The grass is always
and then
greener
you're probably like,
side.
oh, dude, I'd love to have 20 10-acre parcels that, and
I would love to not
where we could pick from what buck we want.
And mind you, like I want 2,200-acre
parcels. To be honest.
I was probably really watching like 13 or 14 properties this year. I mean, I had like 20 Tacticams out this year. And out of all those properties, like 3 of them produced deer that I was willing to shoot. And it's like, you know, so you can't just climb in any block of woods and be like in that area and be like, oh, you're going to have a good deer here. So yeah, like it's completely different than it is out here. You know what I mean?
And I love getting guys on the podcast.
Fucking mouse.
Was there mouse? That's a perfect segue because there's a couple more things I want to talk about, but I gotta take a piss break.
Yeah, we gotta take a piss break. All right, piss break.
I do want to talk. And we're back. Yeah, we're back. Mouse ran across. We all had to take a piss, but we were talking. What were we talking about?
I don't remember, but there was a few things we wanted to hit before we finished up.
That right there.
Yeah, the elephant or the beast in the room, I guess.
The beast in the room.
Yeah.
So we've talked about Bomar and stuff on here playing times, but this is the first deer that we've seen that has been killed with the beast broadhead.
And we always gave Tyler shit about, you know, being...
I'm a Josh Bomar fan. I am.
I can see that
because I've become.
I was gonna wear my. one of my Bomar bow hunting shirts. In
you should have. Come on, man, make a statement.
I was gonna bring you guys one.
It's funny because we've given you so much shit for being a fan, but like, I kind of like him. Like I know all his shit is a fucking.
It's theatrics.
He's a genius.
It's theatrics. He is a genius.
He does put out some cool kill shots.
The dude he's over the top, but he's freaking passionate.
He is so passionate.
I actually just don't like his wife.
Yeah.
I to be dead honest with you, and I don't want to be mean to Josh because obviously if there's a small chance in hell he would ever see this, he'd see that and he'd get real upset. But I think it's just the way Sarah interacts with people on social media.
It bothers you.
It fucking bothers me, dude. She talks mad shit. She calls guys out for personal stuff like. Fuck, I don't know.
Just be nice. But granted, they aren't being nice to her.
You don't have to be nice.
No, I mean,
no one's being nice to her. That's true.
And it's got to be – that has to be hard. Like, one, all the poaching stuff, you look at any other posts, why would I listen to a guy that got charged with poaching? Right. Like, if you really look into all the stuff, you know, everybody pleads down. Like, people say, oh, they pled. That means they're guilty and they pled down. Like, no, that's not what that means. They don't have enough money to beat the United States government. I don't care who you are. The government's put how many mobsters in jail. He doesn't have enough money to beat the United States government.
They got this deal and their lawyer advised them, take the
deal. Well, the thing is, in their individual situation, they probably... It's hard to say, but they probably didn't really know a lot of illegal stuff. You know, so the baiting, they got caught hunting too close to bait in Oklahoma. Did they know the bait was there? That's debatable. But their lawyer basically told them, listen, the bait was there. So no matter what you do, countersuing, suing, this and that, pleading, trying to get it to go away, they already got the bait there and you hunted here. So like, no matter what, you're going to be like, whether you knew about it or not is going to be irrelevant.
Take the slap on the wrist and move on.
And you watched that Hunter podcast where they had him on and he says like, I helped him put bait out. You can legally put bait out in that state. It was Nebraska.
Yes.
He goes,
right. Well, I thought was, oh yeah. You're right.
You can legally put bait out in that state, but you can't hunt within, it was 100 or 300 yards. He goes, you can have a rifle and you can shoot that deer off of that bait at 300 yards. And he goes, and we were putting it out. He goes, but we didn't know that he had bow hunters that were hunting over the bait when we weren't there. And he's like, dude, we went out like 3 years in a row and didn't shoot anything. And we leave and these guys are shooting 190s. So, I mean,
they did have 3 deer confiscated. And that's one of the things that kind of, you know, passionate or not, that's one of the things that bothered me because he's like, they were only like 140s and 150s.
Yeah, a lot of people had
like, who cares? Like, I'll take them. I don't need them. I'm thinking, well, that's, you know, that's the pinnacle for me. So, I get it. He's in a different stratosphere, but the Hunter podcast where Josh was on made me like him more.
Yeah.
I will say that. It made me like him more. I don't have a problem. Like the Beast Broadhead is probably going to, you know, do a lot of things.
I do love the design.
I mean, it's smoked deer. Isaac likes the design. A lot of people like the design.
Like the way it works.
It's high quality.
And we'll say that he broke a blade when Josh says it's really unlikely to break the blade.
Well, he shot a moose.
He did shoot a moose.
Yeah.
But you had to pass through. Deer
he's
died.
here.
Right.
How many yards did that 170 go?
There's a
80
wall
maybe.
of rages and schwackers in there that are bent and dead because we put them through does. You know, they're up on the windowsill. You shoot one deer with those broadheads, and the deer will die.
Yeah.
You know, throwing an axe at a deer, that whole shit. But the broadhead's done. Fucking toast.
I mean, for years I shot the Rage Extreme 2.3s were like the only broadhead I'd shoot.
Yeah.
Then I bought some Severs because of Josh. He was talking about them, and I'm like, I like the design of this. And I think that those hunter guys are shooting those this year. And then I started shooting schwackers, and every one of them, they just look like you put them in a garbage disposal when you get them out. And he says you can shoot multiple deer with them. I wouldn't.
I mean, if you put that through the lungs and in between some ribs. Yeah.
So it's possible you could hit a rock.
Yeah,
in
the
field.
field. We're in Ohio. There's clay bullshit soil.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's a million different things that could
It's
happen.
still sharp.
But, I mean, they fly great. They send you a practice broadhead in the box. And, you know, they flew great, and I'm like, I knew this broadhead.
I can't believe how sharp that still is.
I mean, that was buried in that field. So, you know, I'm like, they did great. It did its job. It had a complete pass-through on the biggest deer I've ever shot in my life.
Yeah.
And I'd 100% shoot him again. I was really impressed with the exit wound. There was like, we couldn't even find it at first.
You know, that's weird
Do you
because
think it
normally
folded the blades back like he says?
I'm wondering if when I hit that like offside shoulder or, you know, that bone up by his armpit, I'm wondering if it kind of closed the blades and they kind of slipped through. But I mean, it was a good blood trail, and it was piss and rain, and I could still find it until, you know, the majority of it ended up washing away.
Because that is the design.
Normally, in our deer hunting situations, that off shoulder is what stops the arrow. So we have a lot of deer where a lot of the bucks that we've killed, the arrow goes all the way in to the opposite shoulder and then bounces out. So you think it's not a pass through because the arrow came out one side.
Yeah.
But when you're tracking the deer, sometimes there's blood on both sides, or when you go to gut him, there's a hole in the skin.
Yeah.
So it does technically go through the whole deer, but that other shoulder is going to stop it after the inertia.
And it was a complete open on impact. I mean, a complete 2-inch cutting diameter on impact. So
that is something to be said.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like everyone knows, they've seen the videos. He's shooting wildebeest in the chest and the thing's burying.
Or shooting ostrich in the ass.
Yeah.
Isn't that what he shot?
Yeah. They
At
shoot it like
126
157 yards. Yeah. But I mean, for the money you spend, it's obviously going to be a quality broadhead.
Yeah.
It's going to kill plenty of deer.
Yeah.
I like to have about 6 broadheads in my quiver, though. So
Yeah.
I've never shot at a deer more than twice, but
I bought 2 packs of them, and like last year you couldn't even find them, and I bought 2 packs of them a couple months ago. I wasn't even going to tell you guys I was shooting them because I was like, I'm going to catch shit for this. But
well, there's a guy like we talked about pre-podcast. One of the groups of hunters that are, you know, that we associate ourselves with that are sponsored by a broadhead company. One of their guys is shooting it because he just wants to see, and
and anybody that
everyone's curious.
And he's so serious about like tuning his bows and shit. I mean, he just posted a YouTube video like last week. It was like 127 tips on tuning your bow. It's like a 2.5 hour video. Literally like his 120 something step process on tuning his bow and arrows.
I mean,
like,
if that's the only thing you have to do in your life, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Did you see the comment on our YouTube video today? My Kentucky one?
Uh-uh.
Someone, like, we have a 20-minute video that's got fucking 500 views, and someone put, your knock point looks low.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, like, you know what I mean?
Because you have that slow-mo footage of your
right.
fucking
So,
winging.
like, right. People do notice that shit.
Yeah, people watch.
People notice that shit. I mean, I guess I don't hate Josh Bomar, but it's just he's the Guns N' Roses of hunting. He's a trendy person you can hate.
I'm
but every once in a while,
and I hope he sees this shit.
He's never gonna see this shit.
I've messaged him on Facebook before or Instagram. He'll message back. Like we've had conversation on Instagram before. I'm like,
send him this podcast and be like, listen, man,
like, look at these assholes talking shit.
We gave you a shout out. I gave you a shout out, and these podcast hosts, man,
I was there for you, and my broadhead did break down. I'm gonna need a new pack of those.
But you got.
I mean, you send him a picture of that deer and that broadhead, he'll send you an. I bet you he sends you a broadhead. I mean, that'd be cool.
Last thing I want to talk about. Any plans for anything else this year?
Daughter,
it's the first week of the season. You're done.
Yeah. So last year we went down to Kentucky for the Velvet Opener. My buddy ended up, a coworker's family's got like 400 acres in Kentucky, like an old slave plantation. And one day he's like, "You guys want to go hunt that? Nobody hunts it." And we're like,
"Yeah,
fuck." going to that property was the craziest experience I've ever had in my entire life. We literally almost got killed by the farmers, like chased down by them. The dad was like, I never told him you guys could come and hunt. And I talked to him for like 10 minutes, and he was like, I fucking like you guys. I'm going to make you keys for the farm. And now we're like locked in with this guy.
Yeah.
He takes us out to steak dinners when we go there. But my wife was like, this year you can either delete your truck or you can go to Kentucky. And I deleted my truck. But we were
Are
just
we allowed to have that on the internet too, or is that illegal shit?
Yeah,
too?
you can do that.
But yeah, so we're actually now talking about going back down. He wants to go down for rifle, which is like the second week of November.
Why don't you go down for muzzleloader?
Well, if we go down for a rifle, I'll bring my bow. I've never killed it except
But their
for the
muzzleloaders,
summer.
October 19th.
Yeah.
Me and Ethan are going down October 19th.
Yeah. So he wants to go down for rifle. I'll bring my bow. I never killed a deer with a rifle until this summer.
Oh yeah. Wait. There's so like
We got another topic to talk about.
Wait. When you started bringing up like shit like that, I instantly went to Indiana. All the shit we could talk about for the Indiana stuff. Remember their hunts they went on?
Yeah.
And then we got the beam.
No, he didn't go on those hunts.
No, but you were out there with them, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
The high fence shit.
Yeah. I hunted that base, and they.
Because I was gonna say, why don't you go to Indiana with us? And then it was in my brain. I'm thinking like, wait a minute, didn't they? Wait, isn't there a story? And then I'm like, oh wait, the fucking high fence deer.
Now I have gone to Indiana a couple times on public and hunted Pigeon River, which we just pull my camper down there.
Hit the button. Hit the button.
Right. The button doesn't work.
Ah, damn it. Because I don't want to put the name of it. Unless you say it sucks, then we'll put the name on.
That's
Yeah.
it's northern Indiana. We've never been close to that.
They're getting hit with EHD real bad.
Yeah, so we've gone
Pigeon
and hunted
River
that.
actually, I've actually read that Pigeon River is getting smoked by EHD right now, real bad.
Yeah, so we might go to Kentucky in November, and then my daughter. Like I have a real nice mainframe 9. He's probably like low 140s, mid 140s, and I think I'm gonna pull her out of school early one day this week.
What about that? What about the big one?
He's so. I'll send you a picture of him, and you can, if you link a picture in here at some point, you can. So I'm curious if anybody else has him on camera.
That's the one with the junk.
Yeah, he's got like 16 or 17 scoreable points on him. He's got to be like 9 years old. Looks like 8. I mean, his belly is just sagging.
Because that was a deer that we thought you were going to shoot opening day. Like I know you had posted your stuff, but we're like, man, like we knew you had that non-typical, and like you know, Pavlik was like, fuck, dude, you know.
If those two walked in together, I probably still would have shot him.
Yeah, me too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we would always probably go for the typical.
Yeah.
But the typical's
that deer is just so inconsistent that I don't know where he's bedding, where he's going, and but there's like 3 or 4 deer on that property that are probably like pushing 140. And there's one other one on that property that I'd put my daughter on. And part of me is like, I don't know if I should put her on another good deer like that. Like, it took me like 12 years to shoot my first buck.
Yeah.
You want her to learn a little bit of the tough.
I mean, the group has talked about that too. Like, if you, and like one day I'm going to be in the same situation. Like, do you want to have everything turnkey? Like, and have will they appreciate it the same?
Yeah.
So
will they still develop that passion when they're 22 years old to hunt?
Yeah.
If it was so easy when they were young that they don't really care about it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, literally 12 years, like 10, 12 years before I shot my first buck.
I mean, yeah, I shot my first deer when I was 16, and I was hunting prior to that.
Yeah.
And then I didn't shoot another buck till I was
27, 26.
No, 2014.
But not like a big one.
I shot that one. I mean, yeah. So there was a lot of years. Yeah. The point being, there was a lot of struggle and learning, and
so us sucking at hunting is what made us so passionate about it now.
I fully, and the fact that we have the family farm, but I do believe that fully that like the suck at hunting to keep going makes you feel better about it.
Yeah.
Guys that can just, turnkey shoot a 170, and I'm not saying, obviously, we all had to judge what we want our children to be able to shoot, but like you said, if she kills 5 good bucks before graduates high school, what's that going to say?
And like part of me goes like, well, if we're putting her on good mature deer, she's going to learn what it means to manage and be able to hold off and wait on a good deer, and is going to have, I don't want to say that respect, but be like, I could shoot that one, or I can hold off and find an older one and a bigger one. And another part of me is like, there's probably not a kid in her school whose dad has shot a deer the size she has, you know, and I know for a fact she's the only kid in her entire school that has ever killed a deer.
Right.
And so yeah, but she goes.
Did she want to go? Like that it was all right.
I mean, when I shot this, when I was leaving to go out that night, can I come with you? I'm like, I'm in a tree today. You can't come with me.
Right.
I'm like, hey, tell my wife I'm gonna go knock on doors. Can I go with you? She'll knock on doors with me. I mean, from the time she was 4, I gut a deer. She holds a leg, so she's in it, you know, more than my son is, and so she has a passion for it. And I'll never push her to do it.
Right.
But I mean, and that's what scares me about everything by me getting torn down and developed is I'm like, you know, it's good for her now, but if she shoots a 160 by the time she's 15 years old, she's gonna really have to learn when she's, when she's in her 20s. So. But yeah, getting her on a deer this year is my main goal. And then if I can make it to Kentucky, I'd like to go down to Kentucky. We haven't even scouted it yet, and there was like 2 real nice deer that I passed up last year, or I didn't pass them up. I shot that first one of the 3 targets that came in, and that was just a freaking gorgeous full velvet deer. And yeah, it was my first velvet buck. So
I was very surprised by Kentucky. The weeks leading up to us going down there, the trail cameras and everything was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, we had 7 shooter bucks on camera when we went down into Kentucky. And by the week we went down there, it really slowed down. There was 2 or 3 on camera, and when we hunted it, we did see, I had my encounter with the shooter, but it was very interesting to me, and I think it's probably because of past hunting pressure, how in July it was like rocking, and then like boom, first week of September, like the nosedive on deer activity.
Yeah.
Our cameras, since we've been there, have been dismal.
Really?
I mean, dismal. We've gotten 2 shooter bucks on camera, the one I saw and another one out of the 7, maybe in those 2 shooter bucks I've got on camera, 3 times total in the last 3 weeks. I mean, it went to a standstill. Unbelievable to me. And it's this is our first year hunting, or technically Ethan's second year hunting that property. So we're learning it and learning Kentucky and learning how this stuff works. But it was a learning experience for me. Like, if I have 7 shooter bucks on camera, I'm going in there pretty confident. And we got down there, and it's like the world was just different. It was weird.
What region are you guys in? Like, more northern, more southern?
We are in a college town.
Okay.
Outside of college town, if that makes any sense. So it's we go through Florence, and then I take that back. We go through Florence, and it's only another hour or so. I'll tell you off podcast. Yeah. But it's mid-Kentucky. Like, it's...
Yeah, we're more northern. We're, like, right past the Ohio River.
Okay, so you're right. But do you take 71 to 271? Yeah. So Florence.
Yeah.
Florence, y'all, the whole billboard and everything.
Yeah. But, I mean, nobody's allowed to hunt that. And, I mean...
Same with our property, too. But it was just stark how, like, a week before season, boom. And the beans were still green as hell.
Yeah.
To me, it was very interesting.
There's no ag on that property that we hunt down there. It's all like they have a bunch of cows in there. Mm-hmm. So, and that's the reason those farmers didn't want us to hunt. They came and freaked out on us, and the landowner's like, "Oh, they're gonna fucking freak out on you." I haven't raised their rent in 15 years. They want to give you an attitude. I'll kick them off the property.
For cows? I mean, what are you gonna do? Shoot a cow?
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? Like,
dude, we pulled in. They busted up in a side-by-side. They were like, "We found a dead cow that got shot last year in the river," and I'm like, "Dude, this is the first time I've ever been
in Kentucky."
It was not me, but yeah, that property. I mean, that is such a prime property, and we kind of just lucked into it. And like I said, it's like 350 acres, and the one side's all mountain, which I'm not used to hunting at all. It's kind of crazy, and then the other side's just this big valley with big hay fields, and it's freaking gorgeous down there.
I do love the mountains, but if you're not used to hunting them, it's a daunting task.
Oh yeah.
Like so our West Virginia farm is only mountain. There's nothing but hillside, and it's crazy how different it hunts. But I love it though. Love it.
Next year we'll get down there for velvet again. It wasn't even worth going this year for me because I'm like, half this shit's gonna be out of velvet anyway because it came in a week late.
The deer I saw was out of velvet.
Yeah.
He was already out.
And I mean, last year when we went, I got in my stand at 4:30 in the morning because I knew he was bedding close. And I knew he was still in velvet because I had his picture the day before. I sat in my stand from 4:30 in the morning, and I shot him at 7:15 in the evening in a saddle.
Yeah, fuck.
I was in a saddle. by like 11 o'clock, I drank all my water. I had my boots off, my shirt completely unbuttoned, my pants were down to my ankles. I'm just sweating my ass off. My hands were so sweaty I could barely hold my release.
So I love so that's like this time of year though. Like it's been 250 days since I've done an all day sit. I do love the all day sit.
Oh, I don't.
But it's like
not when it's 95 degrees.
No, obviously not. Like I'm used to doing it when it's like 15 degrees out.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy an all day sit. I'm looking forward to doing some this year, but yeah, fuck saddle. I haven't done the saddle. I mean, I've never hunted out of a saddle yet.
Nope, me either.
We got them here. I have never used one.
I like it. I kind of thought it was like a fad, and I'm like, everybody's kind of talking about it. It's kind of dumb, but
for public land, it seems like the way to go.
Well,
because you don't have to carry the damn 20-pound stand-in with you.
It's more comfortable for me because I like sitting down that long. Like my freaking hips start. Like I feel like when I hit 30, my body just fell apart. Like my hip hurts.
I like to stand a lot.
Yeah, so I can stand up, or I can just let myself hang up against the tree. And like if you don't shoot seated all summer, the first time you draw back on a deer and you're seated. Like, I use one of the Bowmar nose buttons. And, dude, I draw back, and I'm like, I'm looking through my peep sight, but I'm not touching my nose. In the saddle, I'm standing like I'm practicing all year, and I think it makes a big difference.
I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, I rarely like to shoot deer sitting. You have to in the blinds and stuff, but, like, when I'm in my tree stand, I'm usually standing when I shoot. Like, sitting's tough.
Yeah.
Tough.
And you can only shoot one side.
When we were in our opening day hunt this year, when I had that, I had Isaac bring the fancy camera, so we were trying to get sweet slow motion doe killing, and same thing that you talked about. We're on our phones because it's like we've been hunting for like 3 hours and nothing has showed up. We're on our phones.
70 degrees.
I happen to look up from my phone, probably in the group chat. Happen to look up. There's fucking doe like 15 yards.
She was already pretty much looking at it.
Yeah, I'm like, Isaac, shit. He's like, what? I'm like, and then he's like, oh. So he's like, he's trying to get his camera. I'm trying to pick up my bow. And this blind's only been there a week. And in the cell cam pictures prior to this, I know the doe had noticed the blind. She's
looking at it.
She's always looking at it. So, like, her fawns are feeding. She's looking up at us. And as soon as she turned away, I'd, like, move another 6 inches. And I ended up getting to where I wanted to be, like this. We were sitting exactly like this, actually. And I drew, and when I drew the bow, she knew something was up, but she didn't bust. So she's just looking up and walking on point. And I'm at full draw. How long do you think I was at draw for?
Probably a minute or two. And she's at 30 yards looking at us, but like that's a shot it's so risky to take. An alert doe looking at you.
Yeah, so I'm
at
just
30 yards.
We're at full draw, and there was one point where I was like, I actually have a mock scrape set up, and I'm like, I could probably shoot between the branches. She took another step, so we're watching. She never blew, but she just decided she didn't like it, so she went into the corn. So like, I can't remember if I went down before that or not. I might have went down before that because I was at full draw for 2 minutes.
So you didn't actually shoot?
No, I never shot. And then the fawns fed for like another 15 minutes. I mean, the fawns were in the food plot for 15 minutes, and she never showed back up. And they ended up working off, and then that was about an hour before dark, and then it started pissing instantly after that.
And you could have easily shot, and who knows, maybe it would have.
But we were there. We were there for a specific. We wanted to get that slow motion shot, and with her being on edge, it would have been disaster city. And there's still 207 days of hunting left in the season.
I want to start filming. It's such a big learning curve, and it seems like a lot of work. And who knows if I would have pulled this off trying to freaking film them. And
I mean,
it's easy to start lightly, like with a GoPro or with your phone. Just having a GoPro on the tree above you, just click it on, and then it sees everything. Then you can get into the crazy cameras more.
I've always had like a phone mount that goes on my stabilizer, and the fucking deer come in, and I've been playing on my phone, and I'm trying to get it into the mount, and then I turn the camera on, and the fucking flash is on, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a nightmare.
If you were to start, I would start with the GoPro above you. Just get a big wide angle. You'll be able to get that first shot on film, and then move up from there if you like it, if you don't.
The problem with the GoPro, like, everyone wants to buy the GoPro, and I don't discourage that. I mean, buying the GoPro is cool, but you quickly learn that the batteries don't last that long. If it gets cold, the batteries really don't last that long. If the deer's more than 20 yards away, it looks like hell. There's like the GoPros have like their little like quirks, for lack of a better term. Like sometimes they don't turn on right, sometimes they don't turn off, they freeze up, you gotta take the battery out, all these little things. You had all four of those things together, a guy trying to film his hunt, and he's all these problems and it doesn't work.
Yeah, one little issue and it's ruined.
You gotta really be dedicated. I mean, I love doing it, but to be honest with you, we all know that if that deer would have showed up in front of me, I would probably do my best to have the camera on and pointed in a direction,
Yeah.
but it's not going to look like Heartland Bowhunter because, for one, Heartland Bowhunter has a dedicated cameraman every time using a $5,000 camera and a $2,000 secondary camera and 4 second-angle cameras, and that guy's in charge of that. So, like, for our operation, I'm going to try my best to get him on camera and get the shot, but, I mean, 175-inch buck at 12 yards, you're going to do what you have to do to
Shoot
kill
that deer.
I love
You know what I
those
mean?
guys. They put out such good
Oh,
content.
it's so good.
They are
so good.
I love watching them too. They know what they're doing. They teach their cameramans how to properly use a camera. They're using high end stuff, lenses. I mean, their stuff's just so beautiful.
Yeah, and they freaking tell a story.
They do. They do a good job, and they've kind of captured the same audience that maybe like a Midwest Whitetail does. Because Midwest Whitetail now, it still looks good, but when you have
They're all over the place.
When you have 100 guys on your staff,
Yeah.
I don't care about any of them.
No.
When Bill Winke was there and Jared Mills and some of those guys a little bit, it was way more relatable to me. Now that you have 100 different guys doing all this stuff, like, I could care less.
Yeah.
But Heartland Bowhunter is,
It's a crew.
Skyler, it's Hunsucker, it's who's the other main guy.
I don't know.
But it's a core crew.
Regardless,
Yeah.
there's the same
you,
3
you
or 4
follow
guys.
the same people, which
Yeah.
makes it a lot more
Yeah.
relatable.
Yeah, they have other
easier to
guys
watch.
hunting, their dads, this and that, but they don't try to branch off too far.
Yeah.
I loved Midwest Whitetail back in the day, but I couldn't tell you anything about it now because it's just
Yeah, you watch Heartland Bowhunter and you're like, that is a family.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And it, I don't know. I like them.
And it's
I like them a lot.
I love
Harley-
watching shows when they'll do the same hunts every year, like when they go to the same place. And you can watch that year after year. I know Huntsucker does like his Ohio hunt every year.
And
in
they
the
do
same
Colorado.
Place.
And,
Yeah.
I mean, I like that stuff too.
It's like Heartland and Beaumar right here.
I mean, they're completely different. They're
know.
completely.
I know.
So
Both entertaining, but both way different.
how do you feel about THP?
I liked them like 3 years ago, but to be honest with you, they'll post I like watching a hunting video and seeing a kill shot, and I don't like have the bandwidth to watch like a 45-minute video all the time where it's like
Once a week.
hunting pressured whitetail, and then they don't shoot. And I mean, so I thought like 2 or 3 years ago it was freaking great, and honestly I kind of fell off watching them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't watch it. I really don't watch a ton
There's
of hunting shows on YouTube anymore.
There's certain like hunts and times of the year that I do watch THP. Like there's certain things that I always tune in for, but like when they're out in South Dakota just running around on the ground, it's kind of hard
it's
to
a little
watch.
tough to follow that.
It's funny. I watch way less hunting TV than I used to as well. Like,
Yeah.
I just don't have the time. And when I do have the time, there's only certain things I want to watch, and then it goes back to I just don't have the time.
Yeah.
I can't consume all that media that's put out now. Because there's so much.
Yeah.
There's so much shit out there. It's hard to consume it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do you think?
I think we're good.
Yeah, we've been going. We've been rambling.
This is one of the longer ones.
Yeah.
I would love to talk about next time we get you on here, Tyler, we'll get you on here you can talk about your summer deer permits. Because you're shooting deer with rifle in the summertime and throwing them in ditches, which I know you didn't do.
No.
And then I want to get the full whatever you're allowed to tell us or whatever you feel like telling us about the whole like high fence giant Indiana.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you guys.
Just for fun.
Yeah,
you know?
we got
And
some stories to tell.
We've been trying to get Petrie out here for a long time.
That'd be a good one to have him out.
Yeah.
Or if we can get him and his buddy, the buddy that hunted on the
brother-in-law.
yeah, he might come out.
Why not?
No, he won't. He
don't think
wouldn't
so?
talk about it. No.
Really?
He's the one that told me do not tell anybody where I shot this.
But then he did it again.
Well, there's
he did
no
2 years in a row.
So like we've all struggled on that public land out of state, and when I'm like, no fucking.
Now,
The
Yeah.
first year we let it slide.
When he did that, we were hunting at an outfitter. We were hunting at Triple Oaks Outfitter.
Yeah.
And then he ended up shooting that at the high fence down the road.
But it wasn't projected to like random people like ourselves, like random guys, like buddies of a buddy. We're like, oh my, like you guys are. Isaac come home with that buck on public land. Like you guys suck. Look at my buddy
I told
shot.
him, I was like,
It's
dude,
like, dude,
it was
fuck.
240 inches. Who the fuck is gonna believe this? And then I was eventually like, dude, I'm not gonna be the one that says it, but everybody knows, okay?
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't want people to talk shit. I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude, you'd literally be on the cover of Midwest Whitetail if.
Yeah.
If you went and shot this on
if
public
you shot
land.
right, and we're like, because we know, like, we love Indiana public land's awesome, and we love it, and it's like that caliber of deer. Oh, fuck no.
Yeah, we'll talk about it though. It was a cool experience. I would never pay to do it, but it was cool seeing it, and you just got to understand it is what it is, and you can't tell people, yeah, dude, I fucking knocked down a door and shot a 240. So but yeah, we'll talk about that.
That's a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
All right. Deer Shot Podcast, episode 63.
And we are out.
Out.